In the world of power, influence isn't earned, it's engineered. For decades, hip-hop was more than music. It was rebellion, a voice for the streets. But what if someone steered that voice, packaged it, sold it back to us with a designer label and a barcode? This isn't about beefs or record sales. This is about control. Because when a genre becomes a movement, when lyrics spark protests, when artists become leaders, that's when power gets nervous. That's when gatekeepers step in, and standing at the intersection of fame, fortune, and fear is one man, a mogul, a kingmaker, or maybe a puppet, CIA asset, blackmail broker, occult initiator. Theories swirl like smoke, wild, absurd, but persistent, because in the end, the truth doesn't need to be believable. It just needs to be hidden in plain sight. This is the story of how one man's rise to power might not be his story at all. The asset. What if hip-hop was infiltrated, not by rival gangs or greedy labels, but by the US government? The 1990s were a powder keg. Hip-hop was no longer just music. It was a movement, a voice for the voiceless. Public Enemy was calling out systemic oppression. NWA was spitting fire at police brutality. In cities across America, rap had become the loudest protest. And the powers that be, they were listening, and not in a good way. Enter Sean Puff Daddy Combs. He wasn't political, he wasn't militant, he was flashy. Champagne, designer suits, white parties. With Bad Boy Records, the narrative shifted. Suddenly it was about the good life. Bentleys, Rolexes, private jets. The anger faded. The revolution turned into a celebration of status, and the streets started asking, was this just evolution or manipulation? Here's where the theory gets wild. According to insiders, Diddy's meteoric rise wasn't just hustle and talent. It was orchestrated. The CIA, with its long history of cultural interference, from funding abstract expressionist art during the Cold War to manipulating Hollywood narratives, had a new target: hip-hop. The goal? Neutralize its power, redirect its influence. And who better than a charismatic, ambitious young mogul willing to play the game? There's a pattern. Every time a genre threatens the status quo, it gets steered. In the 60s, jazz legends with political leanings were monitored. In the 70s, COINTELPRO dismantled the Black Panthers. By the 90s, hip-hop was the new front line, and Diddy's rise just happened to align perfectly with that mission. Former industry execs whisper about shadowy connections, early bad boy investors whose backgrounds don't quite check out, mysterious meetings, PR campaigns that seem too polished, too well-funded. Was Diddy just a brilliant entrepreneur, or was he groomed to be the face of a movement designed to distract? As the East Coast sound dominated, revolutionary rap was drowned out by party anthems. Materialism became the new rebellion. The streets stopped chanting, "Fight the power," and started chanting, "Mo money, mo problems." Mission accomplished. Critics say this is just a conspiracy theory, that Diddy was simply giving people what they wanted. But others argue that's exactly how cultural infiltration works. Subtly, invisibly, until you no longer notice. Because when the revolution is televised, someone controls the broadcast. And in hip-hop's case, was that someone Sean Combs? The hit. Two legends fell, but what if one death was a calculated hit, not a feud? September 7th, 1996. Las Vegas. The night Tupac Shakur was gunned down in a drive-by shooting. Officially, it was gang violence, a tragic but unsurprising end to a bloody East Coast-West Coast rivalry. But dig deeper and cracks appear. Beneath the headlines, a darker theory lurks, that Tupac's murder wasn't street beef, it was a hit. And the man who ordered it? Sean Puffy Combs. The whispers started almost immediately. Keith D., a known Southside Crips member, would later claim in interviews and in his 2019 memoir that Puffy offered him $1 million to get rid of Tupac and Suge Knight. Back then, it sounded like street talk. But when Keith D. was arrested in 2023, his statements were no longer dismissed. Suddenly, the theory had teeth. But why would Diddy want Tupac dead? By 1996, Tupac wasn't just a rapper. He was a movement. With his affiliation to Death Row Records and his relentless attacks on East Coast power players, Tupac was stirring up the kind of revolutionary energy hip-hop hadn't seen since Public Enemy. He was political, militant, and unfiltered. Dangerous, not just to record labels, but to the entire entertainment industry's carefully managed order. For Diddy, whose empire was built on glossy materialism, Tupac's raw, street-level activism was a threat. Bad for business. Worse for the powerful people Diddy was aligned with. Industry insiders speak of veiled threats, how Bad Boy associates were unusually nervous in the weeks before the murder, how the FBI had been watching certain phone lines. A former LAPD officer even suggests connections between Combs and corrupt law enforcement figures tied to Death Row's downfall. Still, no smoking gun, but that's the beauty of a well-executed operation. Clean hands, plausible deniability. A war between coasts makes for a perfect smokescreen, and with Tupac silenced, the path was clear for Bad Boy to dominate the charts, free of its most vocal critic. This theory isn't about proving Diddy pulled a trigger. It's about asking who benefited. And as the evidence stacks up, that question becomes harder to ignore. Because in the end, hip-hop lost one of its most powerful voices. And Sean Combs became a global icon. Coincidence or conspiracy? Eyes wide shut. Power, privacy, cameras. What really happens at Diddy's parties? Everyone's heard the whispers. The Diddy parties. Ultra exclusive. Invitation only. No phones. No cameras. But behind the designer suits and champagne flutes, a darker story unfolds. Insiders say these aren't just parties. They're traps. For years, rumors have swirled about what really goes on in those mansions, yachts, and penthouse suites. Former bodyguards, industry execs, even jaded celebrities have hinted at a chilling pattern. Wild parties used for blackmail, covert surveillance, career-ending leverage. Imagine this. You're an up-and-coming artist, label exec, or influencer. You get invited to a Diddy party. The music's loud, the drinks are flowing, the guest list is a who's who of power and fame. But before you even step inside, security takes your phone. You're escorted upstairs. Behind closed doors, the real party begins. Multiple sources describe eerily similar details. A room upstairs, people you can't talk about, things you're asked to do. Some say there are hidden cameras. Others mention private security, not just for protection, but for control. Those who've spoken out claim compromising footage is quietly recorded, filed away for a rainy day when loyalty needs to be reminded. Leaked footage has surfaced over the years. Strange, blurry clips showing celebrities in awkward, vulnerable situations. Nothing conclusive, but always enough to spark questions. In 2024, producer Jaguar Wright reignited the conversation, alleging that Diddy's parties are designed to own you. Her claims echoed older statements from the likes of Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, and even rapper 50 Cent, who famously hinted at things he saw but wouldn't speak on. Because in this game, silence is currency. But why the blackmail? Simple. Control. In an industry where careers are made and destroyed by whispers, having dirt on rising stars, rival executives, or even politicians is invaluable. It guarantees obedience, ensures deals get signed, keeps people in line. The eyes wide shut theory suggests Diddy didn't invent this playbook, but he perfected it, leveraging fame, charm, and opportunity to lure players into compromising situations. Once compromised, they're part of the machine. Critics argue it's all tabloid fiction, jealousy, exaggeration. But when too many stories line up, from too many unrelated sources, coincidence becomes harder to believe. This isn't just about Diddy, it's about a system that feeds on silence, secrets, and power. And when the lights go down and the music fades, the cameras might still be rolling. The ritual. They say to make it in this game, you have to sell your soul. What if that's literal? It's one of hip-hop's most whispered taboos, the dark arts behind the music. But when it comes to Diddy, The rumors don't stay in the shadows for long. Former artists, close associates, even pastors have hinted that his empire wasn't built on business savvy alone, but on rituals, control, and a dangerous game of spiritual debt. Enter Mace, one of Bad Boy's brightest stars turned outspoken critic. In interviews and sermons, Mace has alluded to a spiritual war within the music industry, calling out Diddy for practices that bind artists beyond contracts. Loon, another ex-Bad Boy artist, has spoken of psychological manipulation, suggesting that leaving the label felt less like quitting a job and more like breaking a curse. But here's where it gets strange. Analysts have studied Bad Boy's branding, music videos, and public appearances, pointing out recurring symbols, checkerboard floors, inverted crosses, the ever-present, all-seeing eye. Are these just trendy aesthetics, or are they subtle nods to deeper allegiances? One viral theory suggests Diddy's infamous initiations, those hazy, half-confirmed stories of bizarre party rituals, aren't just hazing. They're designed to break artists spiritually, making them easier to mold, control, and exploit. The idea? A public humiliation or degrading act severs your old identity, marking your true entry into the industry's inner circle. It sounds crazy, until you hear too many people say the same thing. In 2023, a leaked phone call with music insider Jaguar Wright reignited these claims. She described initiation parties involving masks, robes, and ritualistic ceremonies where participation wasn't optional. Others have hinted that Diddy himself underwent such rites early in his career, and now he's the one conducting them. But this isn't just about secret rooms and candlelit ceremonies. The real power lies in psychological control. By creating an environment of fear, secrecy, and dependency, Diddy allegedly ensures that artists feel trapped, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. Contracts may end, but the grip doesn't. Skeptics dismiss this as paranoid fantasy. They say symbols are just marketing. Ritual talk is just sour grapes from bitter exes. But in an industry obsessed with image, every choice is deliberate. And when the same motifs appear again and again, across labels, artists, and decades, people start to wonder, is it just branding? Or is it a language only the initiated understand? Whether metaphor or method, one thing is clear. Power in the music industry isn't given, it's taken. And if you believe the whispers, Diddy mastered the art of taking. Welcome to the ritual, the fall guy. When the spotlight turns, ask who's standing just out of frame. As lawsuits pile up and headlines scream his name, it's easy to believe Diddy's empire is crumbling because of his own sins. Sexual assault allegations, racketeering claims, even whispers of sex trafficking rings. But behind the media frenzy, a darker theory is gaining ground. Diddy isn't just falling, he's being pushed. Think about it. For decades, hip-hop's biggest scandals have come and gone. But the real puppet masters, the billionaires, the shadowy execs, the men who run the money, stay untouchable. When Harvey Weinstein fell, it wasn't because Hollywood had a moral awakening, it was because he became too much of a liability. Sacrifice one to save the machine. Now look at Diddy. He's no longer the fresh-faced mogul of the 90s. His name isn't boosting the brand, it's tarnishing it. And when the industry smells blood, it doesn't hesitate to feed. Some insiders believe Diddy is being served up as a scapegoat, a high-profile distraction, while others quietly clean house behind the scenes. Here's the kicker. Many of the accusations leveled at Diddy mirror industry-wide practices, exploitation, blackmail, sexual coercion. But instead of taking down a system, the narrative focuses on one man. Convenient, right? A compilation of moguls, executives, and power players who've dodged accountability while scandals devour Diddy. Names whispered in backrooms, companies tied to bigger conspiracies, the players with more power, more dirt, but far less media heat. Meanwhile, Diddy becomes the perfect villain. He's brash, flashy, polarizing, easy to hate, easier to crucify. And as the lawsuits unfold, notice how little attention is paid to the structures that allowed this behavior for decades. The labels, the gatekeepers, the enablers. They stay in the shadows untouched. It's a classic move. Find a public figure with dirty hands, amplify his sins, and let the public think justice is being served. All while the true architects of corruption quietly shift their assets, erase their footprints, and prepare the next Diddy for market. Remember the phrase controlled demolition, because what's happening to Diddy feels less like a sudden collapse and more like a strategic takedown. One man's sacrifice to protect the industry's illusion of accountability. The question isn't, is Diddy guilty? The real question is, why now? And who benefits from his fall? This isn't redemption. This is damage control. And if history repeats, Diddy won't be the last fall guy, just the most convenient one for today. The clone theory. Sometimes the man you see isn't the man behind the mask. It sounds insane, ludicrous, straight out of a midnight Reddit thread, but the whispers won't die. Diddy was cloned or replaced, and not recently. People claim the real Diddy vanished years ago. Here's how the theory goes. Somewhere in the late 2000s, a shift happened. Fans noticed it first, subtle at first, but undeniable. His voice, once smooth with that Harlem slick talk, now sounded rehearsed, almost off. His interviews became stiffer. His once electric presence felt robotic. Then came the side-by-side comparisons. Photos of Diddy from 2005 next to Diddy in 2015 sparked wild debates. Facial mapping enthusiasts pointed out subtle differences. Jawline structure, ear shape, even blink patterns. His smile, once wide and easy, now seemed forced, his eyes lacking that mischievous spark. Was it aging? Cosmetic surgery? Or was the man simply not the same? Enter the clone theory. It claims the entertainment industry, with deep ties to tech, biotech, and military black ops, has long experimented with human replication. For high-value assets like Diddy, a body double isn't enough. You need a full-on replacement. A clone, a programmable puppet that can maintain the brand, fulfill contracts, and, most importantly, stay in line. Diddy's empire is too valuable to risk human error. A rebellious streak, a slip of the tongue, can't have that. Replace the man, keep the machine running. And it's not just about looks. Watch Diddy's public appearances closely. Glitches in speech, delayed reactions, moments where he seems to buffer. Social media went wild over a 2023 interview where Diddy seemed to stare blankly for a solid 10 seconds mid-conversation, only to snap back with a rehearsed laugh. A clip that conspiracy forums dubbed the malfunction. Even his relationships began to feel curated, transactional. Longtime collaborators distanced themselves. Some insiders claim the man they once knew isn't there anymore. The clone theory might sound ridiculous, but it taps into a deeper truth. In the entertainment industry, identity is manufactured. Image is a product. Personality is a brand. So whether it's a literal clone, a surgically altered double, or a carefully programmed persona, the result is the same. The Diddy we see now? He might not be the Diddy we once knew. The Puppetmaster's greatest trick? Making you believe the puppet is pulling the strings.